SportsZone. I'm your host, Steven Lucero. I'm joined by Tina Orozco and Emily Condre, and we're going to talk some racing today. We're going to start off with NASCAR. Just had their Cup Series championship over the weekend. Joey Logano victorious, but not without controversy. I'll start with you, Tina. What did you think about the results and everything going on?
I think obviously the issue is with the playoff formatting of it. I think other teams are not getting the opportunities, especially when Joey Logano had the lowest finishing average with 17. I feel like someone finishing average 17 should not be winning the championship, and obviously that's caused a lot of controversy. People are really kind of harping on him, and he was talking about it, how teams need to be coming up in times of under pressure, which he did, and I guess it worked for him in that way.
Yeah, end of the day, he's victorious, but obviously the Alex Bowman disqualification, a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that allowed him to even be there and in that position. But end of the day, he gets his third Cup Series championship. Emily, what were your thoughts on the race and the whole situation?
Yeah, I agree with Tina. I think the point system gives it a little bit more of a way for luck and not necessarily skill at the end of the day. Not that he's not a super skilled driver. I mean, he has 3 world championships at this point. So you can't really say he's not a skilled driver. But yeah, the race was not the most exciting one. I think probably the most exciting part was obviously him winning, but also the pace car crashing, trying to go into the pit lane, and the pace car crashed, which you don't see often at all.
Right.
But yeah, this is Team Penske's third consecutive World Championship. Sorry, I keep saying F1 terms, but their third consecutive in a row, with his teammate Blaney as well also winning. So yeah, it was an interesting season to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. He just edged out his Penske teammate there, so they have really been dominant. Tina, what do you think about the Penske team and just how their thoughts on this race and the past few seasons?
I think they really have it together. I know that that Joey Logano has talked about how he feels confident in his team, his crew, and especially his crew chief, Paul Wolfe. They work together well, not only just for Joey Logano, but for his teammate. I mean, they have a good thing going, and I know that Joey Logano has a quote-unquote long-term contract, although we don't know what that means for them. But I think they have the potential to stay a closer team for a little bit of time now.
Yep, certainly for them. They're feeling good, but obviously some other racing fans, some other drivers, just a little bit upset about how it all went down. And part of that is the playoff point system. It's a little bit different in NASCAR than other racing leagues. And I'll ask you, Emily, what do you think on the point system, and do you think maybe there needs to be some changes made?
I think it's definitely interesting the way they do it. It's less of based on points, whoever has the most points win, and more of an elimination system. So it's kind of, like I said, it's more luck. So like the bottom 4, you get eliminated. It goes through 4 rounds until the winner takes it all championship last race, which was held in Phoenix. I think there's talk of format changes for 2025, but the head has said they still like the playoffness of it. And so I think changes could be made, and I think personally they should be made, but they think it's bringing more revenue, they think it's bringing more fans, and with controversy comes content and more speculation on it. So yeah, I think it should be changed, and I think they definitely will change some things, but they're pretty confident with how it's going so far.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch going forward. And I'll ask you, Tina, Logano, there's been all these calls that, he didn't deserve this. And for a player of his caliber, I don't think he cares much. But I'll ask you, did he deserve this? And do you think there needs to be a change to the point system?
I think he earned it in the last half. Like you said, under pressure, he performed well. But overall season, it doesn't really reflect on the season that he had. And I think regardless of what you think, he's still going to be a 3-time world champion. Regardless, he's still going to be one of the 10 winners who have had 3 or more world champions. So I think he still is going to have a legacy regardless of what people think. And he doesn't care, obviously. He's talked about it. He got his win, and he's happy with it.
Yeah, he's very happy with it. And Logano, we said, his 3rd championship. And I'll ask you, Emily, talking about legacy, where do you think he stands among the greats of NASCAR drivers?
I mean, like she said, he's one of 10 to win 3 championships. So I think he definitely has a place among them. But NASCAR, just like every other sport, has changed so marginally over time. So his championship is not going to look the same as other people who have won 3 championships. But just because it looks different than others doesn't mean he's necessarily less deserving of it. Right. And like you said, he doesn't care what people think of him. He won, he did it, and that's the end of the day for him.
Right.
Yeah, interesting. And do you think he'll keep going, getting later in his career? How much longer do you think he has left?
Well, I know he has an emphasis on his family. After the race, he really prioritizes his sons and his daughter and his wife. So I feel like that might kind of kind of hinder like his focus on the sport, just because he wants to focus more on his family. I believe he's 34. He's getting to an older age, maybe focusing on being a family man rather than a racer. So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see his future, but obviously for the present, he's pretty happy with the 3rd championship. But for now, we're going to move into some Formula One racing, switch it over a little bit there. So the Las Vegas Grand Prix is coming in just a couple weeks, or actually next weekend now, so it's already coming up pretty quick. The second one they've had in Vegas, and really F1's grown a lot. Right. Just coming off that big Sao Paulo race. I'll ask you to start, Tina. What do you think of that race and the state of F1 right now?
I feel like Brazil was a huge race. It was really pivotal, not only in the constructors, but both in the Drivers' Championship, and even with the FIA sort of ordeal, both with the drivers, with them directly, and teams directly with the FIA. I know there's a lot of kind of controversy about safety car issues, even regulations, fines, people getting fined $10,000 for saying one curse word, whereas someone on the track making a super substantial mistake is getting fined $2,000, $4,000. So I think this was really pivotal in how the FIA is treating these drivers and these teams.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. Emily, your thoughts on that?
It was a crazy race. Like you said, it was a very big one in the season itself, but also, it just shows how much the FIA cares about the drivers, which seems to be not a lot, about drivers coming on the radio saying these conditions are not safe. I feel like I'm going to die. We're going to crash. And the safety car was not deployed or put out to help these drivers with their safety until a driver crashed Franco into the barriers. Right. So it kind of was definitely kind of like a awakening for many F1 fans to be like, oh, maybe they don't care about the drivers in the way that they should. So yeah, it was a crazy race, to say the least. Yeah,
certainly, and that was a pretty severe crash. I mean, when you see these conditions, if you didn't watch the race, it was pouring down rain down there in Sao Paulo the entire time. It was just raining. I mean, I was watching the cars and the water's coming up. I mean, you can barely see the track and the cars. Now imagine from their point of view, that's absolutely insane. So end of the day, though, Max Verstappen does get the win. He's got to be happy about that. But looking towards Vegas, a track that will not be wet, considering they're in Nevada, I'll ask you, Emily, what are you thinking about this race? Sort of preview it for us and how it's going to go.
It's a big race for F1 fans. It's very big for the championship. Max is 62 points ahead of Lando Norris in the championship race. I mean, I think we all kind of know that Max is going to win the championship, but it's fun to see a bit of a competition that we haven't seen in the past few seasons with Max. And so Max could actually win the World Championship, the World Drivers' Championship in Las Vegas if he finishes in front of Lando at all. So that's definitely going to be exciting to see. McLaren isn't the best in tracks with high-speed corners or long straights or stuff like that, and obviously the Red Bull is pretty good anywhere. So he does have a good chance of doing that. And Lando also did not finish the race. He crashed last year in Las Vegas, so he definitely has a chance. And then Lando will stay in the fight for the championship if he outscores Max by at least 3 points, which is still possible. So it's definitely going to be a really exciting race. I like the track. I think it's a really exciting street track, but we'll see what it has to offer us this year. Yeah,
it's certainly going to be tight, and Verstappen's one player that was not affected by the rain. It seemed like he just, got right through it. So coming into this course, I'll ask you, Tina, the matchups. Who do you think is going to win this one?
I think Max Verstappen is going to win his 4th consecutive WDC in Las Vegas. I know that Las Vegas, they're prepping for him to win with huge celebrations. Not only that, but McLaren last year did not do good free practice, quali, or even the race, like you said, Orlando DNF. So, and Max won last year along with Checo in P3, so they had a double podium. I think it's looking good. Red Bull, including like the Constructors' Championship, they might take it, both the WDC and maybe the Constructors, depending maybe on where Checo is. I know he's not doing the best right now, but maybe if they both have pretty stable cars, it might be a win for both of them.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be exciting. And this is the second time racing in Las Vegas. I'll ask you, Emily, how do you think it is and how important is it to the sport to really get in these exciting big-time locations like Las Vegas, like Brazil last week? How are you thinking on those?
I think it is a big deal, but also it is a European sport. Definitely. So the European fans are not loving the fact that there's now 3 races in America. So they have Austin, which I went to this year. They have Miami, and then they have Las Vegas. And also people in Las Vegas aren't loving it either. So I think it's big for the sport to have these big locations, but I think also there is controversy that comes with that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And that's about it for racing right now. We're going to get off to the NBA Cup and the NBA in-season tournament, something that's had a little bit of controversy, coming up next.
I'm here to rescue you.
Oh, my prince.
Não sou fácil.
This toy is going to be awesome.
Good evening, my name is Amanda Hasbell and I'm joining you here today in the Union Parking Garage. Today we're going to be going over how to drive safely in the parking garage. Let's go see. Oh my god, this girl just got hit by a car. Let's go see what happened. Ma'am, are you okay? Are you okay?
Did you see that lady hit me with a car?
Yeah, we did. I got it all on video.
Oh my god.
Let's go over here and talk about how we can prevent that.
Yeah, not the hospital.
Well, right now we're going to ask you a couple questions on how we can drive safely in the parking lot. What are ways that we can be aware of our surroundings?
Oh, we can look both ways.
Jenna, also, how about putting the distractions away?
Yes, just like our phones, turning our music down, and also not focusing on our passengers.
Where can you get information on how to get a parking pass?
Transportation.unt.edu.
If you park in a garage, make sure you pay on the app or look for further instructions on how you should pay.
And remember, no pass, no park. Let's all try to keep our mean green community safe.
Remember, we're all in this together.
Drive safe.
Welcome back to SportsZone. I'm joined by Rohan Srinivasan and Timothy, and we're going to get right into this. The NBA Cup, definitely an interesting thing. Added last season, in-season tournament. There's been a lot of controversy just in terms of, do we want to keep this? Do we like this? I'll start with you, Timothy. Do you like the NBA Cup?
Yeah, I think I like it. It's getting players to buy in. It worked. You know, it's getting players to play the regular season like it matters, which was a big complaint with NBA fans. I think the whole changing the court design is a bit strange. Makes it kind of hard to watch in terms of like just visuals, but I like the NBA Cup. I think it's a good thing for the players.
Yeah, just to add on to that, the NBA did this to increase popularity, revenue, all these strategic moves to make actually for the NBA itself to make money and all. But I think it's a good move, not as a Dallas Mavericks fan, because in recent history we haven't played well in the in-season tournament, but hopefully we can get a win tonight even.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, the Mavs dropped a tough one to Golden State. We're going to start off with that game. Klay Thompson's return to the Bay, but it's spoiled by Curry, and it's just another close loss for the Mavs. The Mavs have been really struggling in clutch time games, and I'll go to you, Rohan.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on the Mavs, and how do they get on track and win these tight games?
Well, I think we have to give some context to the situation. 5 out of their 6 losses came in close games, with only the most being a 7-point margin. And honestly, we've lost by 1 to the Suns, 2 to the Nuggets, and then 3 to the Warriors. Let's not hope it's going to be 4 against the Jazz tonight. But this Dallas Mavericks team just needs to get on a hot streak here. It's just about making shots. And I guarantee you, over the course of this season, you will see the Dallas Mavericks really start to come together.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch. Obviously, the Mavs 5-6, but it's, you know, they feel like they're better than their record shows they were. You know, they were really good in clutch games last season. Not so much this year. Timothy, what are your thoughts on the Mavs, and can they kind of get back on track?
Certainly, the Mavericks can get back on track. I think what's going to take, obviously, Derek Lively being out, that presence is felt. You know, defensively in the paint, we're just letting guys body us up. I mean, Nikola Jokic absolutely cooked us. Like, it's going to be Derek Lively coming back into the lineup, whether it's in the starting role or still as reserve. He's just way better than Dwight Powell right now, and his presence needs to be felt so we can have a stronger presence in the paint, which will allow for our outside guys to get more looks for open shots.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be important. Rohan, for the current players, though, who do you think needs to step up a little bit to kind of get the Mavs back on track?
Honestly, I don't think Luka is the problem. I know you think Luka is the problem in clutch time, but to just give some context, he is leading the team in points, rebounds, and assists. He's tied with rebounds, 8.1 with Derek Lively. The thing that we need to consider is that Luka is doing all he can on the offensive end. It's time for somebody else to step up. And like I said, the players have actually been playing really well. The shots just need to go in, and I have no doubt that we'll do that over the course of this season.
Yeah, certainly. And Luka's a sort of controversial topic right now. He's been a player that obviously is still leading the team in points and everything. He's still your number one guy, but he's just been kind of chucking up these late shots, you know, just sort of trying to be the hero when I think for the first time in a while he has other options. He has Klay Thompson, he has Kyrie Irving. Rohan, do you think he's just trying to do too much?
Yeah, I mean, you saw that last play against the Warriors. What was that? He's trying to hit a step-back 3 over, I don't know how tough that was. It obviously didn't go in, but he was getting double teamed. When you get double teamed, you know that somebody else is open, so you got to make the right play. He reminds me of LeBron making the right play, but it just didn't work in that game. It was just a last-minute heave and just didn't work.
Yeah, definitely. Timothy, do you think he needs to do anything differently or just kind of, maybe not be willing to pass the ball?
I think that's what it is, be willing to pass the ball. Throughout his career, he's shown that he can perform in the clutch and take the last shot of the game. And I think as Mavericks fans, you should have all the confidence in that. But if he's missed, 3-4 in a row, I think it's about time you find an open guy, get an open three to Klay Thompson, Kyrie Irving, someone like that. Especially in a game of the Warriors, Klay Thompson is hot as he's been all year. You try to find him late in the game in that scenario instead of Luka taking the last shot.
I will say this, I can't wait to meet them in February again whenever Golden State comes to us, because Draymond was talking a lot of trash, and I really don't like that. He's averaging more claps right now on the bench than actually points. So I really hope that the Mavs can get a win. You'll see us win by 20, and eventually maybe we can meet in the playoffs. Who knows? And you will see the better team come out and play. Not like last time, though.
Yeah, I agree. This is definitely two teams that could meet in the playoffs. We'll have to see. But I think the Mavs will improve. Luka, like we talked about, I don't mind him taking those shots, obviously. When you want your best player on the team taking the big-time shots. For him, though, I think it's just got to be the shot selection. If it's not there, be willing to give it up, But for now, we're going to move over to the rest of the NBA Cup games. Hawks beat the Celtics 117-116, a tight matchup there without Trae Young, but they get the win. Rohan, how'd the Hawks get it done?
Like you said, without Trae Young and running a 9-man rotation at Boston, that's really tough. It doesn't matter even if they won by 1. That is a really good win, and it's part of the NBA Cup, so gives them more of a confidence boost, if you will. So without Trae Young, able to beat the Celtics on the road, impressive.
Yeah, definitely. Timothy, your thoughts on that game, and what do you think for the Celtics right now?
I think for the Celtics, it showed that, they're beatable, right? The Celtics had 20 turnovers in this game, and they were out-rebounded by 12 rebounds. That's the winning success against a team like the Celtics. The Hawks, shooting like crazy. Larry Nance is specific, 5 for 6 from three-pointers. So, being able to out-rebound, force turnovers from the Celtics, force mistakes like that, shows that they're beatable. And that this Hawks team isn't just going to, just be a team to walk over.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Trae Young with him, he's been known to kind of win those clutch time games, but without him, guys like Dyson Daniels stepping up, 28 points, stuff like that. I mean, that's impressive. Rohan, what do you think on this Hawks team, and can they kind of get back into contention?
Honestly, it is early in the season, so a win is a win for them, but in terms of contending teams, I don't think they could beat the Celtics in a series. Just like with the Mavs and Warriors, the Warriors' record is so good, but that doesn't tell you everything. If we meet in a series, I have no doubt that we'll actually beat them in 6 games. Same with the Hawks, right? You go into the regular season, you get an early road win, really good, it boosts your confidence, but when you get into the playoffs, you will see the better team win.
Yep, certainly. In another situation where we saw a bit of a surprise, the Pistons knocking off the Heat. This one 123-121 in overtime. Go to you, Timothy. What were your thoughts on this game?
It was a wild one for sure. I mean, Eric Spoelstra, known for being one of the best coaches in the game, calls the phantom timeout in overtime to cost the team. But I think you got to give credit to the Pistons. They had 5+ players with 10+ points, right? Really spreading the ball around, distributing the points. It was a really team effort there among them to take down a pretty good Heat team.
Yeah,
and how about that? I mean, how many times are we going to say Tyler Hero dropped a 40 bomb? Someone drops 40 on your team and still loses. That means that there's problems in that team. He's looking like the #1 option right now, but it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, Jimmy Butler was out of that game, but Tyler Hero, when you step up like that, 40 points from a player that's, maybe your 3rd option on a team, you expect to win that game, but unfortunately can't get it done. Pistons take that one. What did you see from them, Timothy, to really make them get that win?
I think similar to the Hawks, it was, they out-rebounded the Heat by 13 rebounds. And then coming down the stretch, they really, that last second lob from Cunningham to Hardaway Jr., like that, a play like that, catching the Heat sleeping, stuff like that, showing good chemistry amongst the team is really good sign for the Pistons. And, maybe they sneak into a play-in.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the Pistons, obviously a team, people weren't expecting much from this year, but when you get big-time wins like that, it's some confidence, obviously, for Spoelstra. Calling the timeout, unfortunately turned into a T.
Not the best
Loses
decision.
on the game there. So, obviously, Eric Spoelstra, a guy, he's going to be better. He's a veteran, but those things happen,
And that also shows you, right? A veteran coach making that kind of mistake, it doesn't matter how good of a coach you are, you can still make those mistakes and cost your team a win.
Yep, absolutely. So into one more game, I want to talk about the Suns beating the Jazz. This one, another one that I think was more expected. Obviously, the Jazz, a team that struggled a little bit. Suns have been good, though. Let me know, Rohan, how do you think the Suns are going to be going down the stretch, especially getting Kevin Durant back?
They're going to be good, but as for this game, you just said it right there. They were without Kevin Durant beating the Jazz. And I don't care what NBA team that you play, if you're without one of your star players, it is going to be tough. Take with the Mavs, you're without Luka, right? It's going to be hard to win you a game. So credit to Bradley Beal, Devin Booker for getting it done versus the Jazz. A win is a win.
Yep, certainly. Timothy, your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, again, like he just said, without Durant and still beating a good Jazz team, that's pretty impressive. But to the Jazz's credit, they outscored Phoenix by 20 points in the paint. You know, that's a good sign with Filipowski and Markkanen in the paint. For the Jazz, there's a lot of future there for their big men.
Yep, absolutely. It's going to be exciting. The group stage of the NBA Cup will be continuing on Friday. Be interesting to watch. But for now, we're going to move on to some college football.
Did you know you have access to video equipment like DVDs, video games, and cameras? That's right, you do. Come on down to Chilton Library and fulfill your media dream. Located on the bottom floor next to the student sculpture. Hope to see you there soon. Hey girl, you know you look good. I like the way you move and groove. I'm not sure.
What does Talents do?
So I am the Vice President of External Relations for Talents. That means that I basically oversee all the external committees. Our external committees entail our Model A, it's a mean green machine. So they bring it to football games especially, so every game it's kind of there, every home game. The Model A is like a symbol of UNC pride, and it's a big tradition that we are so lucky to uphold and maintain. When people look at it, they see it, and they're like, oh, that's the mean green machine. There must be a game today or something to ramp up school spirit for basketball, softball, volleyball, any of those things. We have amazing teams, so we just want to show school spirit for them. Bonfire Committee, which is in charge of putting together the bonfire every year for homecoming. It's kind of just a whole semester-long process up until Build Week that we have to put together and oversee and make sure safety regulations are followed and risk management is taken care of. Cannon Crew, which oversees and takes care of the cannon. They fire it at games, they take it to special occasions.
Welcome back to SportsZone. I'm your host, Steven Lucero. I'm joined by Sean Hunley and Jalen Bullock, and we're going to talk some NCAA football. We're going to start with the Mean Green, an unfortunate 14-3 loss to Army. I'll start with you, Sean. What did you see from that game?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really great game to watch. I mean, I really wish that we could have won because we could have, and it was really unfortunate to see those two interceptions kind of late. Kind of almost in the same spot in the end zone, so, I was kind of disappointed. But, I think honestly, they held Army to the lowest score, in their entire season. So I think UNT had a lot of great takeaways. Just unfortunate couldn't get that win to get that bowl game, Steven.
Yeah, definitely. That's frustrating. Obviously, they're going to have another chance coming up soon. But Jalen, I'll go to you. Was this a winnable game for UNT, and what went wrong?
100% this was a winnable game. I think defensively, there was a lot of things that went well for the Mean Green. But in particular, that third quarter where Army had a 21-play, nearly 14-minute drive, was really the reason that they won this game. Also with those two red zone, the total game with red zone struggles and those two picks, by Chandler Morrison, allowing, the other quarterback to rush for 2 touchdowns, 145 yards is really where the struggles lie. 153 yards, excuse me. But going into the rest of the season, lots to take away, positively. Army didn't even attempt to really, struggle with the passing game. But, yeah.
Absolutely. Army completed 2 passes the entire game. And, when you still lose, that's frustrating. But I will say the defense stepped up in a way that we maybe weren't expecting. If you had told me before the game that we'd only allow 14 points to a ranked Army team, I would have said we would have won, judging on how our offense has been. Sean, do you think the offense can get back on track? And do you think the defense can kind of continue this success?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we saw UNT implemented that 4-man front. I mean, it seemed to do pretty well. I think, despite the fact that Army kind of ran the ball the whole game, UNT still had a good amount of passing yards. I mean, it wasn't very shy from what Chandler was coming into the game with. I think it was like over 300-something passing yards a game. So I don't think that this loss should kind of, bring anybody down on the football team. They got 2 very winnable games coming up. They got one tomorrow night. So like he said earlier, a lot of, positive takeaways. I mean, if you look at it, Army had 308 yards, UNT had 283 total offensive yards. So, not really a crazy game to be like, oh, wow, that sucks, we lost, the Army, big whoop, no problem.
All right, so UNT obviously going to be back in action against UTSA, a chance to finally get that bowl eligibility. But I do want to talk about Army just for a little bit. In a situation in this game where it's like, it was something I'd never seen before, honestly, just to see how they just ground pounded it down our throats the entire game. And, they've had the success. They're still undefeated. I'll ask you, Jalen, how has this worked for them?
I mean, they're just playing to their strengths, When you have a quarterback that is an elite runner, and there's really defensively, there's really only few ways to stop him, let alone the running backs. It is great to see. It's beautiful like football. Going back to the 60s, the 70s of just, smash mouth football, just purely on the ground. And so far, there has not been a team defensively. We're going to see if Notre Dame is able to figure it out. But they're just able to get in the spots. They're opening the field. Their line is just allowing them to run the ball so well.
Yeah, for sure. It's truly been such a, like you said, an old school kind of system. Just Army crawling right down the field, honestly. And it's just been very interesting. And we'll see, though, against a team like Notre Dame. I'll ask you, Sean. Are they going to be able to do the same strategy and expect a win, or do you think they're going to have to make some adjustments?
No. There we go. I very much disagree. I don't think not disagree. I don't think they're going to beat Notre Dame. As much as Notre Dame they do like to run the ball. Riley Leonard's got over 1,000 passing yards. I mean, they've done really, really well since kind of since that loss to Northern Illinois. So and that's kind of what separates the two is that Army just like you said, they run the ball pretty much the entire game. Bryson Daly is, I believe, he's second in the American Athletic with rushing yards. He's only 147 yards behind, I think, Mekhi Hughes. So if Army can't kind of figure out a way to kind of separate that against Notre Dame, it's going to be a pretty, I'd say ugly loss. But you know what? We'll see.
Yeah, certainly. We'll have to see. They are undefeated, but we'll see if it can last this one for sure. But going around the rest of the NCAA, we had some big games last week with some major playoff implications. Alabama knocking off LSU, effectively sort of knocking them out of the playoff race. I'll go to you, Sean. What do you think about that game and Alabama's chances of getting back into the playoffs?
I mean, I was really shocked by it. I know LSU, was going to come. They went in there thinking they were going to, beat their team at home at Death Valley. I mean, and Jalen Miller went off. I mean, four touchdowns, almost 190 yards rushing. It was a sight to see, that's for sure. I think Alabama, that's a huge win for them, and it's they're really starting to pull away kind of in the West, in the SEC. So I think, Alabama wins out, and if LSU takes another loss, I mean, they're kind of already out, but I think Alabama's got a good shot at getting in there at the CFP.
Yeah, certainly. I'll ask you, Jalen, with that, do you think Bama is back? Do you think they're going to be making the playoffs?
I think that they have a good chance to win out. So then, of course, I think they get into the playoffs. Coming off of those two losses to Vanderbilt, to Tennessee, Tennessee, a very good team, which we will talk about a little later. The Alabama defense is starting to get things rolling, of course, holding, LSU to only 13 points, high-powered LSU offense. And, of course, when you have a quarterback that can rush for 4 touchdowns already, even with that talented receiving core, and you don't have to get it done through the air, the sky's the limit. This is a team with a lot of championship aspirations. This is a great coach. And, of course, still in his first year, the culture that he has brought to an already established Alabama program, the sky's the limit.
Well, especially in how much Alabama kind of struggled early on. I figured they would run into problems with the whole thing with NIL and new coach. Replacing Nick Saban's pretty tough, but I mean they've really banded together and had some really impressive wins. I mean obviously that loss to Vandy's going to hurt. Yeah. But still, I mean just they're able to kind of find their rhythm now, and that's kind of what they've been doing. And I think for Nussmeier on the LSU side, I think that A&M game really hurt them. So the fact that LSU kind of lost like that was really tough for them.
Yeah, certainly want to move on to Georgia and Ole Miss, another game where Georgia, a team that's used to the success, and now all of a sudden they're facing struggles too. They're the first team out right now of the playoffs with that. Ole Miss, a big-time upset. Jalen, what do you think about that game?
Okay. Ole Miss had 5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, that interception. Jackson Dart, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. We know this. He just continues to get better and better. We've seen the edits of him saying we have to win out. And right now, this Ole Miss team looks like a team that is going to win out. Caden Lee was one of those receivers that stepped up big with 81 yards. And just Ole Miss really controlled the entire game. Early on, of course, Georgia scored first, I believe. But after that, it was just go mode from Ole Miss, excuse me. And Carson Beck is just a very inconsistent quarterback. When he's hot, he's one of the best in the country. But when he's low, he is debatably the worst at sometimes. And this Georgia team just can't seem to get into a groove. Of course, they had a good win over Texas, but just overall, this is not the Georgia team that we're used to.
I don't think Ole Miss is that good, though. I mean, I think they like to think they're that good. But, I mean, if you ask me, I mean, yes, absolutely, Georgia is struggling. I mean, Carson Beck has had multi-interception games a couple of times. They just didn't look like they were ready to play yesterday. I mean, Saturday, it was tough for them. And so you even saw it with Kirby ripping the player after looked like he was celebrating that they lost. I'm like, what are you doing out there? So, I mean, yeah, struggling Georgia team right now.
Yeah, certainly they're in a weird spot. They had been number 2. Everyone, despite the Alabama loss, was confident in them, but this one really tanks them down. I want to talk about the college football rankings. The second edition came out this week. I'll go to you, Jalen. What are you thinking on the rankings, and who are you looking to make this playoffs?
Okay, so of course, Oregon, we still have, as the best team in the land. I think this Oregon team just gets better week in, week out. Ohio State has continued to have great wins coming off of this shutout win with Purdue. Of course, Texas, starting to get really into a groove of things, one of those teams. Penn State, I don't think Penn State is really as good as, the rankings are saying. Indiana is a team that really, as we get into later season, they have this matchup against Ohio State coming up. We're going to see how good they are. Of course, Miami finally took that first loss. That was really just a matter of time of coming. I think that, that this Georgia team, sitting right now, they're at 12th. But I do believe that they're just going to continue to struggle, and they're going to be one of those teams that doesn't make it. We're going to see how Tennessee, going into this matchup with Georgia, that is really going to be a big game for how these, rankings stock up. But I think Georgia's going to be really that key team that doesn't make the cut.
All right, certainly, and that's going to be interesting. Teams like Ole Miss, Georgia, Alabama, all right there on the fringe, and of course Boise State, the potential to jump to 12 with the, that group of 5 spot. I'll ask you just real quick, Sean, who do you think gets in of these fringe teams?
Honestly, I like SMU. I think SMU, they could possibly sneak in. I mean, maybe even A&M too. They did lose Le'Veon Moss though, so we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we will definitely see, and it's going to be interesting to watch down the stretch. But for now, we're going to move on to the Dallas Stars.
University of North Texas. It has computers, printers, and the building is open 24/7. By going online, you can book up to an hour of reserved space in one of the many private study rooms. Many of them are equipped with whiteboards, a table, and a TV to hook up to your computer. Textbooks can be checked out for free with a student ID. They also have many of these in ebook forms. This is still a library, so always remember to be quiet and respectful of other surroundings, especially in certain places where talking is not allowed. For example, the 3rd and 4th floor are completely quiet. As you can see, Willis Library has many options for students, with it offering many media sources and staying open all the time.
I'm so tired. I feel ugly. I'm not okay. I didn't know UNT had counseling services. Maybe I should check it out. This looks like the place.
Welcome back to SportsZone. I'm joined by Jack Shrupsha and Nick Volpetti, and we're going to talk some Dallas Stars hockey. This is a team that's been up and down, had that incredible start, a little bit of a lull in Finland, and coming back, though, an incredible win against Pittsburgh. I'll go to you, Nick. What are you thinking about the Stars team so far?
I think so far it's been a pretty solid season. I mean, there's definitely been some ups and downs. That Finland trip was pretty terrible. There's no other way of putting it. But I mean, yeah, like I said, it's been ups and downs. There was that game against Pittsburgh yesterday, or Monday, which we'll talk about a little bit more. That was an incredible performance. So yeah, it's been kind of like I don't know, kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde a little bit for the Stars. But I think overall it's been pretty good. Like I've mentioned with the Stars a few times, they tend to have a pretty good team effort in a lot of their wins, which is good to see. I think that's a good thing to look for going forward. It's not just one guy, it's a lot of guys doing it for the Stars.
Yeah, definitely. Jack, your thoughts on that, and who's impressed you so far for the Stars?
Yeah, I think the Stars have had a good season. Obviously, they came out real hot to start the season, then had a bit of a few games they let drop. But I think what looks like could be a career season for veteran Matt Duchene. With 18 points in the first 14 games and 8 goals. So that's really exciting to see one of the older guys stepping up and really producing offensively. So he's definitely been a guy who stuck out for me for sure.
Yeah, Duchene's been excellent, and we'll talk more about him later, but I want to get into the Penguins game. When you win 7-1, score 6 of them in the first period, that's pretty exciting. Nick, talk us through it.
Yeah, that's crazy. 6 goals in the first period. I can't remember the last time I've seen anything like that. I think they kind of took out some of their frustrations after not really playing well against Winnipeg. To be fair, they're not the only team that hasn't played well against Winnipeg, but yeah, I mean, Mason Markman, he had 5 points in the game and 4 points in the first period. I mean, that's 4 points in a period is crazy. Heiskanen had 2 goals that both came in that first period as well. I hope it's something that they can kind of build off of too. Like Jack said, after a really great start, it was kind of up and down. I think they lost 3 out of 4, but yeah, hopefully this is something they can kind of build off of with tonight against the Bruins, and then they've got some easier games coming up like the Ducks and the Sharks, and Minnesota's been good, but I think they're a team that the Stars can beat also, so yeah, I hope it's something they can build off of.
Yeah, for sure, and I'll ask you, Jack, on that game, you can't help but be excited when you win like that. Do you think they can build off this momentum going forward?
Oh, absolutely. I think to go on the road against any team in the NHL and perform like that is really impressive, and you mentioned Heiskanen and Marchment with 2 really impressive games. So for Dallas to score 6 in that first period, and I think you hit it right on the spot, taking out some of that frustration after some of those losses they suffered. It's really impressive, and I think they'll be able to build on that momentum for sure.
Yeah, it was true dominance, and it's really exciting just looking at these highlights, running over a team like that. And I'll ask you, Nick, do you think that this for the offense and all the lines can really build on this and keep getting maybe that rapport with each other?
Yeah, I really hope so. Matt Duchene, you were talking about, has been incredible, but I mean, there are some guys this year that maybe have some low point totals, like Jason Robertson only has 7 points, and I hope that this kind of is a game where everybody can sort of use it as a good building block to get their season going, who may not be having the best season so far. So yeah, I really hope that it's something they can kind of build off of as a team. The Stars at their best are a 4-team and a 3 defense pair team. Like, they're not top heavy, they're a deep team, and I hope that that's something that they can use to their advantage.
Yeah, certainly, and it's going to be exciting to watch, obviously. Coming up now against Boston, game against the Bruins, it's going to be important to keep this going, and I'll ask you, Jack, who do you look to step up in this game?
I mean, Boston has always been a real physical, puck-possessive team, having one of the best scorers in the NHL in David Pastrnak. So I think defensively, the whole defensive core really has got to step up. Lundqvist has been a guy who's been really impressive this season, and obviously Heiskanen being one of the better defensive line play people in the NHL. So I think Dallas, what they got to do to win, they got to bring the physicality to them and get in front of pucks to help Ottinger the best they can.
Yeah, I think that's important, especially that physicality aspect. I'll ask you, Nick, what have you thought about the defense so far, and who else would you like to see step up?
I mean, I think the defense for the Stars has been a little bit better than we expected it to be. There have been some rough moments, like the games in Finland against Florida. I think lately we may have seen it start to fall off a little bit, but I think as a whole, this defense has been better than a lot of people expected, I would say, especially, a guy like Nils Lundqvist. I think he's looked a lot better than we thought. Last year in the playoffs, he was playing like 5-6 minutes a game. Not really something that you want to have happen to you as a player, but I think he's sort of earned himself a spot in that top 6. Night in and night out, and I hope that continues, because I think he's been really impressive so far.
Yeah, definitely. Lundqvist, a guy who's really stepped up this season. And I'll ask you, Jack, are there any other players that you'd like to see maybe get some more minutes, get some more opportunities?
I think this Dallas, with how they are depth chart wise, very balanced team. Like, I think they are a 4-line team. Obviously, you're going to see the top 6 get the most minutes. But I think maybe some guys like Sam Steele, he's a guy to me who has the opportunity, who could really break out this season. So in one of those games against a team like Boston, a physical team, I think really rotating through your lines, getting the 4th line in there, could be an opportunity where we see some guys get some extra minutes, throw their body around a little bit. So I expect to see the 4th line getting some more minutes for sure.
Yeah, certainly. I hope so as well. Nick, anyone else stick out to you that you'd like to see a little more from this season?
Yeah, I think Jamie Benn, I think over the last couple of years, we start to see his play fall off just a little bit. That's kind of to be expected for a guy who's getting older, but he's only got 7 points this year. He's the type of guy that I think is a good member of the supporting cast now who you'd like to see a little bit more production from. I don't think he's necessarily been terrible or anything like that, but he's the type of player that I think can go in a little more. Wyatt Johnston as well, I think he only has 7 points. So yeah, there are a few guys who I think could step up a little bit, but as a whole, I think it's been a pretty good offensive production so far for the Stars.
Yeah, certainly. And when you have a team as deep as the Stars, it's kind of tough just sort of sharing the love. Ben's been great on faceoffs. That's one thing I'll credit him for sure, but obviously a lot of guys around the lines to look for. I'll ask you, Jack, though. This team, it's gotten, we feel good, I think, about this one. But looking forward, especially with teams like the Jets, hanging around, do you think they can keep up with those top-tier teams?
Yeah, I think they will. I mean, really early on into the season right now, but I think it's going to be a wild finish for sure. I wouldn't be shocked if it's like they're overlapping each other consistently throughout the course of the season. But with how poised Dallas is and just how good they are balance-wise across their whole roster, I don't think anyone anticipated Winnipeg to start off this hot. Mm-hmm. So I think Dallas will be able to be right on their tail the whole season, if not overtake them at some point.
All right, interesting. Yeah. So the Stars obviously hoping to build off this momentum. Nick, do you think they can keep it going and compete?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Jack there. I mean, Winnipeg, I'm not going to discredit anything they've done so far. 15-1 is unheard of, really. But I think you just kind of naturally have to expect a little bit of a regression from a team. Like, that's not really a sustainable thing that you can do over the whole season. Personally, I don't think that there's like too much of a talent discrepancy between the Stars and the Jets. I think that they're two of the best teams in the NHL when you look at their rosters. So I think when you look down the line in like March and April, you'll start to see those two teams get closer, maybe even earlier than that if the Stars can rattle off some wins here.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that that it'll be close.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be exciting to watch. Obviously, the Stars back in action against the Bruins. It's going to be exciting to watch that one. But we're going to move on to our final topic. It's going fast, and talk about some fighting.
Why should you join Talons?
We are very welcoming to people who may be a little bit hesitant. There's people currently right now in our organization who are in leadership positions who were hesitant before to join, and they found out that they just loved the organization and wanted to be a bigger part of it. They post about the football games, everything they're doing, all their events that they host.
What's the best part about Talons?
I would say meeting new people, because the university, while it's a kind of small campus in terms of like physical land, there's a ton of people here. And so getting to meet all these people who have so much school spirit and love for this university and want to spread that to other people, it's kind of like a little miniature family that we're in.
There's no harm in wanting to have fun while in college, but it's easy to lose track of how much you've had. Apps like Drink Control and Alkadroid can help keep track of your consumption and blood alcohol levels. If you or someone else does drink too much, the signs of alcohol poisoning are as follows: pale skin, vomiting, confusion, low body temperatures, irregular breathing, blacking out, and is hard to wake up or cannot be woken up.
Dude, are you okay? Hey, what's wrong? Wake up.
It's an exciting time of year, but it's important to be responsible. If you suspect someone is suffering from alcohol poisoning, get help immediately. You will not get in trouble for seeking help if you are underage. For more info and resources, go to UNT's Division of Student Affairs.
Welcome back to SportsZone. I'm your host, Steve. I'm joined by Jay Lathan and Gunnar Talbot, and we're going to talk some fighting. We're going to start off with UFC 309. Some great matchups to talk about. I'll start with you, Gunnar. Break us through it.
All right, I'm very excited about this card. First things first. New gloves, all right? UFC 302, we saw the introduction of these weird gloves where they're trying to make their fighters' hands bend, and you saw a lot more broken hands, a lot less knockouts, so I'm happy to get those new gloves back. But, going through the card, John Jones, baby. John Jones, Stipe Miocic, Usually, I'm going to be excited because it's UFC no matter what, but this is kind of a useless fight. It's like, if Stipe somehow wins, right, which he probably won't, he's just going to retire. And if John Jones wins, he's also probably going to retire. So it seems like there's no end goal to be grabbed here.
Yeah, it's a very interesting fight because these are two, goats of the sport. Miocic considered, to be the best heavyweight of all time. John Jones, the undisputed best light heavyweight, and now into the heavyweight class. I think a lot of people think he's the best fighter of all time. Does he really have anything left to prove, you think, Jay?
Honestly, at this point, it's just establishing himself as a heavyweight, and I feel like at this point, John's really fighting for his ego, but at the same time, dude, there's no point in fighting a guy that hasn't fought in almost 4 years, and he's literally 42. He'd be, I want to say, top 5 oldest champions if Stipe managed to win. But back on your gloves, man, this is a huge thing for John Jones because John Jones was one of the few fighters that really, before the gloves even came out, instantly started complaining and talking about the gloves fit tighter, they were smaller, that he normally wears an XL, had to switch to a 3X. But John, you're notorious for poking people in the eye, which these new gloves were supposed to prevent. And it's like Dana, once again, they're like, man, he does whatever for John Jones. But I mean, we could go on and on about this card. I mean, Stipe's last fights where he had losses was against Ngannou and Cormier, which were two guys that John beat and also was hoping to get another super fight with Ngannou, but clearly that's not going to happen anymore. It's kind of sad to see, but I think it'll be an interesting matchup.
And when it comes to breaking down this fight and trying to analyze it, we have 2.5 minutes of fight time between these two fighters since 2020. Is that not insane? Stipe is the 8th ranked heavyweight, and he's getting this title shot. You know, when this fight was first announced for UFC 295 last November, it kind of made sense. There was no real heavyweight that had broken away from the pack. But Tom Aspinall is the interim champ. There's never been the time of UFC as an interim champ had to defend his belt. And Tom Aspinall has not only beat and won the interim title, and then he defended it against Curtis Blades. And now they're wanting him to fight Stipe for some reason.
Yeah, it's a very interesting matchup, and obviously Jones coming off the injury. Stipe hasn't fought since 2021. Jay, how do you expect this to go, and do you think Jones dominates?
I think Jones is honestly, as long as Stipe doesn't like push him and become the aggressor, and John just gets to analyze him, because I mean, John Jones is one of the smartest fighters in the history of the UFC. I mean, he's the youngest champion ever. He's had the belt since he was 23 years old, and I mean, Stipe doesn't really have any outstanding skills. He's just a smart tactical fighter, but you're going up against another smarter, more tactical fighter who's arguably more athletic than Stipe. So, and he has less ring rust. So, I mean, there's not really much to say about Stipe having a chance in this fight.
I mean, there's not much, like he said, there's not even much to go off of, because last time we saw him fight, he got knocked out by Ngannou. And he is, you know, he is the heavyweight GOAT. He's done a lot for the sport, but he's 42 at this point, you know. And he can't really wrestle that well. So it's just going to be, I just see John Jones taking the ground of the fight, beating him up on the ground, submitting him ground and pound, something like that. But I don't really see an avenue. I'm trying to think. I just can't really think of a way that Stipe really wins this fight.
Yeah, definitely.
Rosa Ferreira next?
I mean, maybe if he keeps ducking Aspinall at this point.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, obviously. Big names, but we'll see how close it is at the end. But moving on to the co-main, I think this one, a lot of, you know, the rematch of it is definitely interesting. Michael Chandler, Charles Oliveira. Go to you, Jay. What do you think on this fight?
I'm actually more excited for this fight to watch. I mean, John Jones is the GOAT. He's my childhood favorite, but this fight was a lot more competitive. You watch Oliveira, Chandler won. I mean, it ended in a second round TKO for Oliveira, but man, this fight was action-packed from the start. I mean, they were throwing hands, they went to the ground, and both these fighters are a lot more active than the previous two fighters. And I think Oliveira has a good shot here. I mean, he has a great chin, and I don't think there's many people better on the ground than him.
You know, say what you want about Michael Chandler, but he is an entertaining fighter. You know, no matter win or lose, it's going to be a fun fight to watch. You know, he fought Oliveira, great fight. Fought Gaethje, great fight. Fought Poirier, great fight. But let's not forget, he lost all those fights. You know, he's going to come out, he's going to go crazy in the first round, and as long as Oliveira can weather the storm, I see him winning the later rounds.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Chandler, a guy who wants that revenge. He wants that redemption after being so close to beating him last time. Jay, do you think he gets it, or do you think Oliveira shuts him down?
I think pretty much the same thing is going to happen as the last fight. I think Chandler's going to come out hard. He's going to come out with a vengeance, and he's going to push the pace. But, I mean, we're acting like Oliveira didn't survive multiple times where he was back down. And at times I was like, dang, Oliveira might be out for the count, but he has an incredibly strong chin. He's extremely resilient, especially when he was on his back. He's never really phased once. So I think Oliveira is just, once again, just kind of tire him out, wait for him to slip up, and then he's just going to put him to sleep.
And let's be honest, Charles Oliveira is still in the top echelon of lightweights. He's probably the 3rd best lightweight in the world right now, all right? Michael Chandler is coming off 2 years of waiting for Conor McGregor, waiting for that big payday. Even before that, he was still, like, he has 2 big UFC wins, and it's against Dan Hooker and Tony Ferguson, 2 guys that were on losing streaks when he already beat them previously. Charles Oliveira has shown that not only is he one of the best, he's one of the best, like, top 15 pound-for-pound fighters in the world. So it should be a relatively not easy fight, because Michael Chandler is still a dangerous opponent. And, you know, he says he's feeling the best he's ever had, you know, with these 2 years off, which I doubt it. But it's still going to be a good fight.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be an interesting card. Obviously, anytime you're fighting Madison Square Garden, it's going to be obviously an incredible environment. But moving on to a different fight that's going to be happening this weekend, Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. Obviously, boxing is in an interesting state right now, and I'll go to you, Jay.
Yeah, I'll say that.
What do you think about this fight?
This is a disrespect to the sport, to say the least. I mean, honestly, it's a cash grab for Mike. What does this do for his legacy? Absolutely nothing. As he said to the child, he is just a guy that is just passing through, and one day he'll die, and legacy is nothing but ego to him. So, I mean, Paul, this just, once again, an ego boost for him, cash grab. I mean, if Mike goes down in this fight, I think a piece of me might die a little on the inside just watching one of my idols go down like this. But hey, boxing, it's something. I mean, in real boxing, there's just a lot of guys ducking other guys, paydays not matching up. We've been begging for these super fights, and I think that's one of the bigger problems with boxing and why UFC is surpassing it right now.
This seems like a lose-lose fight for both fighters here. It's like if Jake wins, everyone's just going to be like, well, Mike Tyson's, what, 58, almost 60? You would have never beat him in his prime. And if Mike wins, it's like, well, of course you should have won, all right? It's Jake Paul, which I think people don't give Jake Paul the credit for. He is a good boxer. You know, he's been boxing for, what, 5 years now? He better be kind of good. But I just don't see the appeal to winning this fight for either fighter, except the money.
Yeah, I can see that. And do you think anyone's really taking this seriously, or do you think, like you said, it's more of a cash grab?
I see him taking it seriously. Okay. Like, you see the training videos of Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. I think Jake Paul's taking it more seriously because he wants that one over. Like, I beat Mike Tyson. I did this. I did that. But I just don't see it giving him the credit or the fan want that he thinks it's going to get.
Yeah, I'll ask you, Jay. Who do you think wins this one?
I'm hoping Mike Tyson, logistically speaking, like despite Mike being almost 60, he's still Mike Tyson. And I mean, all it takes is that fire to light in him, and he's a puncher, and that power will be felt. I know they're using a little bit of heavier gloves. I believe they're using 14-ounce gloves, so more cushioning there. But I mean, I'm really not entertained by this.
Yeah.
I'll go on a limb here. I'll say Jake Paul wins, all right? You know, Mike, this is not the Mike Tyson from 1980s, 1990s, all right? He's 58. Jake Paul is somewhat of a capable boxer, so I can see the speed being too much.
All right.
Hoping for a liver shot. You know?
I mean, that'd be
just
fun.
a liver shot to fold.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting weekend in fighting for sure, but obviously this one will be this weekend at AT&T Stadium. You can also catch it on Netflix if you're not going to be going, but thank you guys. I will see you guys heading up next time for our final show, so it's going to be exciting for that one, but be sure to stay tuned for NTTV Nightly News.